The Hillary Clinton campaign in waiting, in crisis, in full damage control, as Clinton's email controversy creates more questions about security, ethics, and Democratic politics. This is Special Report. Good evening. Welcome to Washington. I'm Brett Baer. Could the Hillary Clinton presidential campaign be in trouble before it officially begins? The former First Lady's grip on her party's nomination for the top job may be experiencing some slippage tonight, and even her modest effort at trying to put out the fire seems to be fanning the flames on both sides of the aisle. We have Fox team coverage tonight. Shannon Bream looks at whether this latest scandal might open the door for other Democratic hopefuls. But we begin with correspondent Doug McKelway and Clinton's effort to try to diffuse a story that's getting a lot of attention. Good evening, Doug.
Evening, Brett. The ranking Democrat on the House Select Benghazi Committee has accused Republicans of trying to sabotage Hillary Clinton's yet unannounced presidential bid with its subpoena for emails on her private system. But it wasn't Republicans who produced the emails. It was the State Department. Their production, after years of investigation, poses a perplexing whodunit. Was it a conscientious State Department staffer, a disgruntled Democrat who supports Elizabeth Warren, or Clinton herself putting out bad news in advance of her expected run?
How you doing, Hillary? Hillary, with the blunder on the emails, was that just a generalization gap, or can that be corrected?
Her unannounced campaign for president increasingly battered by the burgeoning email scandal, Hillary Clinton made a first foray into damage control with a tweet posted at 11:35 p.m. Wednesday night. Quote, "I want the public to see my email. I asked State to release them. They said they will review them for release as soon as possible." One document she may not want the public to see contains this. Fox News' Catherine Herridge has obtained a 2011 unclassified State Department cable signed by Secretary Clinton. Quote, "Avoid conducting official department business from your personal email accounts." Clinton's late-night tweet has raised other questions.
Why does she need the State Department to release her emails? They're on her own private server. She should release her emails.
The Select Committee on Benghazi was also unsatisfied by the tweet. It responded, quote, "The former secretary is welcome to and should release all of her emails, but legitimate investigations do not consider partial records." Hours earlier, the committee subpoenaed all of the former secretary and her staff's communications related to Libya and the State Department. One cybersecurity expert says the committee needs the server, too, if it still exists.
The server is the lockbox that has all the clues, all the answers to these questions. The other thing that it has, though, is whether or not there were attempted hackings on this server, and if any of those hackings were successful.
That raises another question. Did State Department security approve of the private system?
My assumption is that this system was approved by State Department security, simply because they would have to notice that the regular system is not being used.
In August of 2012, the State Department Inspector General reprimanded the U.S. Ambassador to Kenya, Scott Gratian, after an investigation found that he, quote, ordered a commercial internet connection installed in his embassy office bathroom so he could work there on a laptop not connected to the department email system. Gratian later resigned.
Clinton's apparent concern for filtering the record is not new. In 2012, then Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Near Eastern Affairs Raymond Maxwell described to investigative reporter Cheryl Atkinson how he found Clinton Chief of Staff Cheryl Mills and Deputy Chief of Staff Jake Sullivan on a Sunday afternoon separating out damaging documents before they were turned over to the Accountability Review Board. Maxwell was ultimately disciplined, one of only 4 State Department employees punished after Benghazi. Brett?
Doug, thank you. Hillary Clinton has been the front runner for the 2016 Democratic nomination for years. But now some people, both in and out of her party, are openly questioning whether that continues to be a good thing. Correspondent Shannon Bream has that part of the story.
What, do you think maybe wrong email address Ghazi will be a big boost to her Democratic primary rival, TBD?
As potential trouble mounts for former Secretary of State and one-time Senator Hillary Clinton, not everyone's laughing.
Virtually everyone that I've talked to in the last few days throws their hands up in the air and just sighs and says, "Are we back into it again? And when will this stop?"
And though Clinton has yet to formally announce a 2016 run, she's not avoiding the spotlight altogether. Speaking at a Washington gathering this week for Emily's List, a progressive group initially founded to elect pro-choice candidates.
Don't you someday want to see a woman president of the United States of America?
And if Clinton stumbles, there are other women being floated as viable candidates. Chief among them, Senator Elizabeth Warren, who has repeatedly said she has no plans to run. Her Senate colleagues Amy Klobuchar and Kirsten Gillibrand are often mentioned as well. Though none of them is taking obvious steps toward a run, others are, like former Maryland Governor Martin O'Malley, with visits to key early states like South Carolina and New Hampshire. He's stopped short of direct negative attacks on Clinton, as has another potential 2016 contender, Senator Bernie Sanders, who acknowledges he is considering a run.
If Hillary Clinton decides to run and I decide to run, we're going to have very good debates, about the role of Wall Street in our society. About trade policy, about foreign policy.
But until now, just the assumption of Clinton's candidacy has been enough to keep most potential Democratic challengers on the sidelines. Even Vice President Joe Biden, who said he's waiting to make a decision until the end of summer.
Until now, this field has been frozen. The Clintons are very effective at making connections, keeping connections, growing connections, and obviously putting a stranglehold on the funding of these kinds of campaigns. They're just the de facto leaders of the Democratic Party.
There is reportedly a bit of internal debate within the Clinton camp about when she should formally enter the race. Some advisors worry that major donors are holding off until she's in, but this week's revelations may delay what was expected to be an April announcement. Brett.
Shannon, thank you. More on this with the panel. Forecasters, meantime, are calling for record low temperatures tonight in dozens of cities, including Cleveland, Chicago, Memphis, even Waco, Texas. What's supposed to be one of the last big winter storms of the season dumped nearly 2 feet of snow on Kentucky. Hundreds of vehicles were stuck on state highways for much of the day there. One backup was said to be 20 miles long. Passengers on a Delta jet flying from Atlanta to New York had to walk the final few yards after a scary accident that could have been a lot worse. Correspondent Laura Engel is at LaGuardia Airport tonight.
A harrowing ordeal for the 127 passengers and 5 crew members on a New York-bound Delta flight arriving from Atlanta, Georgia, that left many thankful to be alive.
And I'm just grateful. I mean, I know there's a higher power that was holding the plane from doing whatever that it could have done.
Delta Flight 1086 skidded off the runway at LaGuardia Airport at 11:05 this morning, narrowly missing the icy waters beyond defense.
I think the pilot did everything he could to slow the aircraft down. Obviously, the pilot and the co-pilot's good efforts were reflected in the fact that there were only minor injuries.
Patrick Foy, executive director of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, which operates the airport, said that the runway had just been plowed before the incident and that 2 other pilots reported good braking conditions minutes before the Delta plane landed. According to passengers, the MD-88 aircraft came in for a landing amid driving snow. Some passengers said they thought the aircraft had actually hit the water.
It was nerve-wracking. The plane came down and it slid, and then it took a spin to the left, and we looked out the window and we could see the wing was hitting a fence.
It was different. I knew once we landed, we was going pretty fast, and I knew we was going too fast to be landed.
Miraculously, there were no serious injuries, but 3 people were transported to local hospitals. The Port Authority also reported that there was a minor fuel spill at the time of the incident. Fuel was leaking out at a rate of about a gallon a minute, but Port Authority officials were able to stop it.
And Delta Airlines issuing a statement late this afternoon offering more information on this particular aircraft, saying that the MD-88 last had a major maintenance overhaul in December of 2010, and also adding that the last safety regular maintenance check was March 3rd, just 2 days ago. Brett.
Laura Engel live at LaGuardia. Laura, thanks. Up next, trying to keep the U.S.-led coalition against ISIS together. First, here's what some of our Fox affiliates around the country are covering tonight. Q13 Fox in Seattle with an accident involving a school bus, a box truck, and a passenger car. Authorities say all 43 students were sent to a hospital to be checked, but only a handful were injured. The driver of the car was killed. 2 people in the truck were seriously hurt. Fox 2 in St. Louis, where the parents of Michael Brown say they will file a civil lawsuit in their son's death. Local and federal authorities have declined to file criminal charges against former officer Darren Wilson for that shooting. And this is a live look at Phoenix from our affiliate out there, Fox 10. The big story there tonight, a life sentence for convicted murderer Jodi Arias. For the second time, a jury was unable to reach a conclusion on her punishment. Prosecutors had pushed for the death penalty. Instead, a judge will decide if Arias gets life with or without the possibility of parole. That's tonight's live look outside the Beltway from Special Report. We'll be right back.